not in the criminal justice process. But I think that, I'll go on and on about this and really start to get less and less articulate about it. Watching the documentary and watching the reporter name this is just everything. They go after her, they vilify her for being attention-seeking, for being a black widow. There's the psychiatrist who assessed her for the trial. He's amazing as well. He seems to really have a handle on some of the nuance of what's going on as well. But he attributes what she did in her correspondence and her relationship with this young man as being SSRI mania, meaning she was manic depressive, but she was in a manic moment when she was in the particular correspondence that drove him to get back into the car and ultimately stay in the car until he died, as some sort of a reaction to her medication or lack thereof, or misdiagnosis of medication, some sort of mania attributed to having a chemical imbalance and not having the right dosage of medication. But regardless, he seemed to have his finger on something that I have not seen in a lot of criminal trials with psychologists or psychiatrists, where, much like the reporter, like he was not placing blame. He was not saying, oh, she's mentally ill, or she was an attention seeker. Like, he was really trying to figure out like what the underlying issues were. But again, I don't know much about the concept of SSRI mania, if that's a diagnosis many people get, but it's something to consider when you're really reading about this particular trial, which is so unlike anything that's happened before. Just like the Lorena Bobbitt and John Bobbitt situation, there was no precedent for this, right? At least not legally. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about with regards to the Michelle Carter situation and documentary is that, they do talk about the attention, the Black Widow, and just kind of like they do with all women when they're on trial. Like they did it with Tanya Harding. They do it. We know they do it. But they do actually name the issue of men fearing women. Why do they fear women? And the reporter, again, is one of the folks in the documentary that really kind of talks about that a little bit more. We know the trope that men are afraid that women will laugh at them, meanwhile women are afraid that men will kill them. Whether or not you put a lot of stock into that is up to you, but it's definitely something that a lot of people put stock in and believe and is their truth. But the idea that men in general fear women. Why do men fear women? What are they afraid of? In the documentary, they pose instead of the women will laugh at men as being, the main fear, it's that women can control men. So you have this whole other conversation in Pandora's box that gets opened about the manipulative abilities of women. Everybody can be manipulative, men, women, anything in between. But I don't think it's any shock that women are master manipulators. I don't think being a manipulator is necessarily a bad thing. I think, again, context is everything. There are reasons to use manipulation as a defensive mechanism, and there are reasons to use it as a defensive mechanism. One I think is warranted, and one I think is not. But regardless, women are master manipulators. I think that some of us might even take pride in that. Excuse me, but I'm interested to hear feedback on that, as opposed to men fearing women will laugh at them, men fearing that women will control them / manipulate them. So again, I'll leave it at that. But the Michelle Carter I Love You Now Die documentary, it's 2 parts on HBO. It's a must watch. When I first posted about this in my online Facebook group, which is private and exclusive to women, there was a lot of strong opinions, and a lot of them were like vilifying Michelle Carter, like right out of, like, not right out of the gate in terms of like they had no knowledge of what was going on, but just like, she's guilty, that bitch deserves to die, like, what the fuck, blah, blah, blah. Like, there was no second, third, fourth layer to that conversation. It was just like, nope, she texted him, she coaxed him back in the car, done and done. Well, true, but why? Why does she think she did? And again, as the reporter said, instead of just asking why she did it, why did she think she did it? Like, why? What does she think about her why? Anyways, I digress. What else are we here to talk about? Oh my god, so many things. If you guys haven't had the opportunity to see Ophelia, this is a new remake. I have no freaking idea who directed it, but it stars Daisy Ridley, who plays Rey in the new Star Wars franchise, and, you know what, I'm so sorry. I thought I had my shit together, but I don't. Who is... Oh my god, Naomi Watts. Like, what am I even doing with my life? So it's Daisy Ridley playing Ophelia and Naomi Watts playing Queen Gertrude. So it's basically a retelling of Hamlet from Ophelia's perspective. Now, you're not talking to a well-bred Shakespearean bitch. It's I've done my fair share, but when it comes to Shakespeare, I am not well-versed. I am intimidated. I'm just not... It's not... I've seen a lot of adaptations. You can get me on some Hamlet, and you can get me on some Romeo and Juliet. You can get me on some Henry VIII, but Macbeth is a lot for me. But even this, even like the Hamlet narrative is a lot for me to process. So the long and the short of it, and if anyone is unfamiliar with the famous portrait of Ophelia, let's see if I can bring that up for you. Painting, rather, it's not a portrait. So the painting is by a British artist, Sir John Everett Millais, which came out in 1851, and it's based on Ophelia, and I don't know if that's going to come out very well on camera, but it's a very famous picture. Most people are familiar with it. Her in the water, on her back, right before she drowns. Sorry, camera's gotta film my face again, y'all. So you just gotta make a cute face and they'll find you. I'm just like a man. Anyways, let's get back to the point here. So this is a retelling of the Hamlet narrative as it pertains to Ophelia from Ophelia's perspective. This could have been a great movie. It was mediocre at best. You have two huge talents. You have your Daisy Ridleys and you have your Naomi Watts killing the game. Writing wasn't so great. Story wasn't great. They didn't have a lot to work with. But it was, to be fair, in what I know of the plot of Hamlet, it was very much a nice, happy ending retelling of the story. So much like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a fairy tale version of what happened around the Manson family murders, this is a fairy tale version of Ophelia getting not super depressed and drowning herself. So there you go. Do with it what you will. We have to talk about her smell. So speaking of Handmaid's Tale, if you love your Elizabeth Olsens, then you may or may not have heard about a little indie movie that came out earlier this year called Her Smell, where she plays a jaded, drug-addicted, kind of grunge rock queen past her prime. So Courtney Love-ish type of moment. Movie not so great. Definitely worth the watch, but it's worth a watch because you get to see Elizabeth Olsen do what she does best, which is act her fucking cunt off. And you get a little, you get some moments, but it's not. Nobody went to see it. I mean, it literally. I don't even think it played in any theaters. Like I got it on the black market, but it's worth a watch. I think you can get it on Prime or you can rent it on iTunes just to watch Elizabeth Olsen's performance. There you go. So I covered all that. We're going to do a couple shameless plugs. If you haven't already, please check out my mom's YouTube channel, Let's Dish with Linda Lou. If you like home cooking, if you like bloopers, if you like a sassy Sicilian redneck bitch showing you how to cook, please subscribe to Let's Dish with Linda Lou. She's got a blog by the same name. She's got a Facebook group by the same name. Do whatever the hell you want. You'll see on my YouTube channel homepage, it's linked there. My good friend Marissa has a YouTube channel called Vegan Living. If you're about that life, or if you're not about that life but just want to see some great cooking tutorials that you might want to incorporate, it's also linked on the homepage, Vegan Living. But I wanted to end on two things. And I mentioned these at the beginning of the video, so we're going to kind of come full circle here. Netflix dropped 2 gems on the 12th of August. To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, and Now and Then. Now, let's start with the latter. Now and Then came out when I was in 6th grade, I think maybe 7th grade, so I was 11, 12. When it came out, it was marketed as like the Stand By Me for girls. I think that's generous. There is no Stand By Me for girls. One has not come out yet. I'm sorry, Now and Then, you're great, but you're not that. But what was amazing is I hadn't watched Now and Then in probably like at least 10 years, maybe even longer. I'm 37. I watched it the other day. There is a lot going on in that movie that I don't think was or is appreciated. Not only do you have a great cast, but I think there is there's a lot of subtext there that for the 90s I don't think it couldn't have been appreciated when it came out, because it didn't come out in 2019, right? So let me take this from the top. With the 2019 hindsight that we have, looking back on Now and Then and rewatching it now, there is so much going on in that movie with the women as they exist in the present versus the flashback versus what was going on with their parents. Just so much. And just also so much you can get away with right now. If I think about the scene where the girls are riding out of town to do their research and they happen across the Wormers, and you see 4 boys all between the ages of 8 and maybe 14 running buck naked, and maybe if you paused the right moment, which we did on the VCR, when Devon Sawa is in a towel and he runs to grab his clothes, you pause at the right moment and try and see his penis. Never quite could, but you couldn't make that movie right now the way it is. You couldn't just show, we wouldn't do that. It's so ridiculous. But anyways, Now and Then, show it to your daughters, show it to your sons, rewatch it. It's just so good. It's so good. It's so good. And then they hit me with Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar. Again, hadn't watched Tu Wong Fu in probably 10 to 15 years. And I had seen it a good dozen times. I just rewatched it, and I have to tell you, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, that movie is perfect in every way except one. That one being the gang rapist rednecks would not, within the span of 8 hours, all of a sudden become enlightened because of 3 drag queens and get invited to a party and all of a sudden be perfect gentlemen. But I'm gonna let that slide.